So the question we're going to be answering in today's video is, can you use a recurve bow for self-defense? If you're in the unfortunate situation that somebody is coming into your home and you need to protect yourself or your family, is a recurve bow a good tool to do that? There's a bunch of things to consider. There are some pros to using a recurve bow, there are some cons to using a recurve bow. We're going to go over it all, and I'll give you my final answer at the end on whether or not I think a recurve bow is a good idea for self-defense. Okay? First thing you need to consider is the kind of bow. Different kinds of bows are going to be better or worse. The length of the bow, you're going to be maneuvering through a house. But in the unfortunate case of a home invasion, you're going to be maneuvering through the house. Now, if you ever walk through your house holding your recurve bow, you know that it's really easy to hit doors and things like that and make noise. It's not like a gun where it's kind of handheld and small. You can kind of move through. You're not worried about hitting a handgun on a wall as you're walking through the house. So there are different kind of bows that are good and bad for self-defense. I actually wrote a blog post on my website, getrecurvebow.com, about the best recurve bows for self-defense. You can check that in the description below. So first thing is the kind of bow you have. But if you have the bow that kind of checks off the qualifications, which by the way, many of them do, many bows can be used for self-defense. Next thing you want to consider is the bow poundage. Now, before we dive into the different poundages, let me tell you that most states require at least 35 to 40 pounds for hunting animals. Not that we're going to be hunting anybody, but the point is that states have identified 35 to 40 pounds to be the minimum effective poundage in order to be lethal. So you'll want to consider that. So my recommendation would be at least 40 pounds. Now, if you have a bow that's less than 40 pounds, you may want to consider, practicing getting your bow poundage increased. I actually have an article on the website also about how to increase your draw weight. If you're in that 30 to 40 range, if you can only pull 20, it's going to be hard for you to get to 40. But if you're in the 30 to 40 range, 30 to 35 range, getting to 40 shouldn't be that hard. I have a link in the description about different workouts you can do and different ways to increase your bow poundage over time. Another thing you're going to want to consider is the arrow head. Now, there are certain arrowheads that are made for hunting. I'm going to put some pictures up of the different arrowheads I use for hunting. So every arrow comes with the normal plastic, I don't know if they're plastic, but the normal arrowheads that come, and those are made for practicing. Those won't do a lot of damage. They also won't do a lot to slow somebody down in the case of self-defense. So you'll want to make sure that if you plan on using your recurve bow for self-defense, you first of all have the recurve bow in an easily accessible location, such as a wall mount, a bow stand. You don't want to have it somewhere in a closet where you got to dig for it. I mean, it would be the same thing with any other kind of self-defense instrument. You wouldn't want to have your gun in the back of a closet all the way on the ground where you have to search for it when you're trying to deal with a self-defense situation. So the first thing, you want to make sure that the bow is easily accessible. The second thing is you want to make sure that the arrow you're using was made for self-defense. Now, there are no arrowheads that are particularly made for self-defense, but there are arrowheads that are made for hunting, and those are made to cause the maximum amount of damage. So you'd want to use arrowheads that are made to penetrate. They're sliced. You'll see the pictures right now. They're sliced in a certain way, but they're made to slice through skin, whether it's of animals or, in the case of self-defense, of skin. Another thing that's really important, if you've done any recurve bow hunting, you know that arrow placement is unbelievably important. If you hit someone directly on a bone, chances are it's going to hurt them. It might even stay inside. But if someone's moving towards you, the chances that a shot like that will actually stop them, maybe not. You also want to focus on hitting them in the right places, soft areas. You might want to avoid like the sternum. Even though this looks like a good spot, you have a very hard bone right there. You want to focus on softer areas. Now, so you're going to want to work on your accuracy. That's going to be a big thing. You want to make sure that if you pick an area on a person, especially if they're moving, we practice all day on non-moving targets, but in a case of self-defense, there's a good chance that person's going to be moving. So you need to work on accuracy. You need to land the bow in a place that's going to slow them down. Obviously anywhere here, here you'd have to be pretty accurate on getting that shot in right to make sure you're avoiding. There's a lot of hard bone over here, right? And then leg, things like that, that's not so great. That's not going to stop somebody. If they're not very adamant on getting to you, hitting them anywhere will essentially do the trick. This happens with like petty theft, if someone just coming in to steal a TV. If you hit them in the leg, you hit them in the knee, even if they see you with the recurve bow, they might run away. So what's the pros of using a recurve bow for self-defense? The biggest one is a recurve bow is quiet after the fact. So you might have multiple attempts because you fire a gun, everyone in the neighborhood knows a gun has been fired. Right? In many states, silencers aren't legal. So what's nice about a recurve bow is it's quiet. That's why a lot of people use it for hunting. It's a quiet tool to use. Now, another thing about a recurve bow is that they're easy to get. Guns, they're more difficult to get. They're harder to maintain. You have to clean them. The bullets for them are quite expensive and they're not reusable. So recurve bows, they're cheaper. They're easier to get. You don't have to worry about going through extensive things, or you could even teach your teen how to use it. My dad taught me to use my recurve bow when I was 16, and we had an understanding that in the case of that kind of situation, I had the recurve bow and he had the gun because I was underage at the time. So those are the pros of using a recurve bow. Now, there aren't many. Now the cons, there's quite a few. First con is that recurve bows are big. In a case of self-defense, you need to be able to maneuver. You need to be able to move. If you're walking through your house, you need to be able to move your recurve bow without being worried about hitting a wall. You need to be able to duck and hover under things. And the recurve bow, it's long. If you're hiding under a table, I mean, it's not going to be easy to conceal like a gun would. Another thing is accuracy as an archer is much more difficult than accuracy as a marksman. If anybody that has used both bows and guns knows that bows are much harder to master, so you have a much steeper learning curve when it comes to archery. Now those are two pretty big cons. Another big con about recurve bows, obviously this is the biggest one, is that they're less lethal. So if somebody is adamant on getting to you or a loved one and you hit them with an arrow, the chances that you'll stop them in their tracks is less than if you were using a gun. So overall, I do not recommend using a recurve bow for self-defense. I do not recommend. There are too many drawbacks, and the drawbacks are too big, especially in situations that are such high stakes as self-defense. But let me tell you what I do. I have my primary tool for self-defense is my handgun. My secondary tool for self-defense is my Samick Sage. So I keep my Samick Sage in a different room just in case I'm unable to get to my hand rifle. So this is more of a backup than a primary tool for self-defense, which that's a great way to use it. Just make sure you have the right bow, you have adequate poundage, you're well adjusted, you have strong accuracy for your recurve bow so you can land a shot off quickly. You got to get that shot placement right, and you just make sure that you're good at maneuvering your recurve bow, because you're going to be moving through it, and you really only have one chance when it comes to self-defense, whether it's a gun or a bow. Most self-defense situations, you only have one chance to stop the intruder or whatever the situation may be. So no, I do not recommend a recurve bow for self-defense. It could be used as a backup. Now if you're looking for a recurve bow for self-defense, I have an article on my website about the best recurve bows for self-defense. If you like the video, please like it. If you're interested in watching future videos, I'm actually going to take this Samick Sage hunting, just waiting for hunting season here in Ohio, and I'm going to record some of that footage and I'm going to be uploading it. So if you're interested in that kind of content, please subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.